So thank you for joining me today. I'm trying to mix it up every week. One week we'll do something that's for the conscious mind to help us focus on our strategies, on our routines, on what we're doing on a day-to-day basis to stay healthy, happy, and focused on what we want to focus on, not on all the negative things that are being presented to us on a minute-by-minute basis. And then the other week, I'm going to continue to do those guided meditations for a deep sense of relaxation. You can listen to the recordings of everything that I'm going to be doing over the next few weeks on our website. Right now, we have the meditation that we did last week on the homepage. As soon as this event is done, we're going to move this recording onto the homepage, and we're going to start a page, a web page with all of the, every previous week's recordings. So I'll send that out via email as well. But really, to me, this is super important because right now, this idea of thinking positively probably seems like a very difficult thing to do. And in many ways, to think positive is a very trite statement. It's like, yeah, whatever, what is there to be positive about? Or what is there to, what's the point? I've heard some of my clients say that a lot of this positive thinking stuff feels pointless. But just know that the more stress a person experiences, more fear that a person experiences, the more their body has to struggle to maintain their immune system function. So stress produces an endocrine response that suppresses the immune system because the body is focused on surviving the immediate threat, which is causing the cortisol and the adrenaline release. It's not focused on living to be 100 years old, right? Because the body is focused on the tiger in the room, not on the long-term health of the organism, which is us. But that's exactly what we need to be focused on, is keeping a healthy immune system. And a healthy immune system starts with a positive state of mind. And a positive state of mind is a combination of several factors. I had to whittle it down to 3 just so that we could keep it within a reasonable amount of time. But of course, there's so much more than just those 3 things. So here we go. I'm gonna use my iPad here to draw and to write. A lot of you have already seen me do this quite a bit. And so the 3 elements of a positive mindset all feed each other, like so. So there is no beginning and there is no end, and there is no one place to start. But positivity is really an emotional state. And an emotional state is the product of, and some of you already know this, how we use our body, right? Physiology, what we focus on, and what we say to ourselves. Now, I'm not going to stop here, so please don't think, oh, I've heard this before. Oh, God, she's going to talk about this again. Because to be honest, I've heard this probably about 30 times, truly. I've heard it about 30 times myself. And when I approach each instance of hearing it with an open mind, I end up learning something very important, or I end up applying what I've learned to something else going on in my life. So please do give yourself the opportunity to learn something new, even if it's something you've heard before. So for those of you that have never heard me say this before, physiology, like I just said, can be anything that has to do with the body. So it can be breath. It can be sitting or standing. It can be walking. It can be smiling or frowning, right? So it may seem simplistic, but most of the time, people's initial reaction when it comes to physiology is they think of like weight gain, or they think of um, being extremely active. Like, we tend to think of these very big extremes. But the bottom line is that we will feel differently. We will have different thoughts come to us depending on how we use our body. So, has anyone ever heard or seen? And I guess this is a rhetorical question because we're on a webinar with lots of people, but I'm sure many of you have heard or seen the idea of a meditative maze. It's like a garden, and it's got this little circular spiral pathway, and people are just walking on this path, and it's like a meditation walk, walking meditation, I should say. And they're just, putting themselves in a specific frame of mind, in a specific mental state, in a specific emotional state by walking in this circle with other people or by themselves on this path. Other people will say that, when they feel confused, they go on a long walk down a specific street, and it's always when they pass by a certain tree or a bush or something that they have kind of an aha moment. Those are two examples. Other people will do breathing exercises first thing in the morning, and they find that once they've done their breathing exercises, everything seems easier, or they feel more energized than they were before. So, to stay positive, we have to take control over how we use our body. And I really can't emphasize this enough. There's no magic bullet. There's absolutely no magic bullet. There's nothing that can do for us that which we're not willing to do for ourselves. Even with hypnosis, which is what, I started my business doing. Even that, if the client is not willing to do and imagine and think and visualize what I'm telling them to imagine, think, and visualize, then nothing will happen. So nothing in life happens to us. Everything, truly everything that we experience is what we decide that we want to experience. And what we experience is the product of these three things, regardless of the situation, regardless of whether it's something that is being said, something that we're reading, something that we're, doing or is being done in our environment. The other thing is words. Words can be questions. Those are probably the biggest and most important type of component in this trifecta here, this part of the trifecta, words. So we have good questions that give us the opportunity to find good answers, right? And then there are bad questions. There is such a thing as a bad question, regardless of what our teachers told us in school. There is such a thing as a bad question. Not that we're bad people, not that we're stupid people, not that we're, faulty for asking bad questions, but there are good and there are bad questions. So an example of a bad question can be, why is this happening to me, right? Or, why am I so unlucky? If we ask those questions, our mind is going to come up with bad answers, such as, and I'm just making this up, because you suck, right? I don't know. Because you're doomed. I don't know. These are examples of bad answers that our mind can come up with when presented with questions like these. And I've had some clients in the office rephrase questions that are like this, that are unhelpful like this, and ask a different question, which is not just why is this happening to me, but what's something good? What is something good about, or not about, but what is something good that might come out of this? What's something good that might come out of this? Because out of everything, every challenge that we experience in our lives, something good always comes out of it. The question is, are we looking for it, or are we looking for only what's wrong? Are we looking for what's right, or are we only looking for what's wrong? And certainly out of this, coronavirus situation, something good is going to come out of this. There's going to be some kind of new world order, new priorities, new ways of relating with each other, new technology, new new forms of communities, right? Some people are predicting that people are going to move out of heavily, densely populated city centers, and they're going to move out to the country because you know what? We've got the technology. Why do we need to live on top of each other? People who are in this technology field, and especially information technology, they're obviously predicting that AI and robotics are going to take a huge leap forward after this. That maybe the FAA is going to relax the airspace restrictions on drones, and soon we're going to have more drone deliveries than deliveries by people. All sorts of opportunities are going to exist, but here's the thing. If you're feeling fatigued, let me change colors here so you can see what I'm writing. Fatigued. If you're feeling, foggy in your head, if you feel low energy, not just fatigued, but like truly lethargic, you're not going to have the mental clarity to ask better questions. And you're going to stay stuck asking yourself really poor questions because your body affects your mind and the mind affects the body. So it's not the body and then the mind, or the mind and then the body. They really do have a synergistic biofeedback loop here. And it's not just, a fairy tale. How we use our body affects how our mind processes information. I know that as a pilot, I had to do a lot of memorization. And in particular, a great example is when I was in early flight school, I was learning how to do formation flying. And formation flying is where you take two airplanes and you put them in very close proximity to each other. And to give you an example, we were flying about 6 to 10 feet apart. 6 to 10. So the Blue Angels, they fly 18 inches apart. I think the Thunderbirds fly something like 3 feet apart or less. And then a flight student in Corpus Christi or Pensacola, Florida, will fly close to another airplane at about 6 to 10 feet. 10 feet is probably too much. 6 feet is about right. And it's close enough where you can see the expression on the other pilot's face very clearly. It's close enough where if either airplane makes a very sudden movement, the airplanes will collide. I mean, without a doubt, that would happen. I've almost died more times than I can count. And the only reason I didn't die is because I was paying attention and I moved my airplane out of the way. But I had to learn how to do this. And there are specific maneuvers that you have to do while you're flying the airplane. So, you have to do something called a cross turn. You have to do a tack turn. You have to do a cross under. You have to do a break up and rendezvous. You have to do a, um, formation section takeoff. I have to do a section landing. So yeah, we take off and we land about that far apart, and it's challenging. So we practice by using our body. And so you can practice sitting in the chair, just kind of looking at the diagrams in your notebook. You can practice by drawing the diagrams in your notebook with little arrows that say, something like, excuse me, you can draw, like you can draw that, and then draw this, and then you can draw this, and then draw that, things like that. But if you actually get out of, oh, I'm sorry, you're not even seeing my screen. Forgive me. Something happened. I'm not sure what happened, but let me fix this. There we go. So you can draw something like this in your notebook. You can draw something like this in your notebook, but unless you actually get into a position next to someone else and actually move your body in these angles, you're not going to actually remember what are the hand signals that you're supposed to use. What are the power settings that you're supposed to use? What is the angle of bank? Actually, multiple angles of bank that you're supposed to use. All of these things come and become ingrained in your mind as a pilot when you use your body to recreate and to put this into, bring this to life, essentially. So back to our situation here with thinking positive and staying positive, we can think positive thoughts, right? We can say positive things to ourselves. We can maybe even go as far as to seek out positive news or, good, happy stories, to help to wash away some of the negativity that we're hearing on the news. But if we're doing it while we're slumped on the couch, or we're doing it while we're laying in bed, or we're doing it while we're hunched over in a very passive state, it's not going to have as much of an effect. It's going to have almost a negligible effect because our physiology is not changing. So just like the pilot who could be sitting on the couch drawing these little figures, that go like this, he's not going to remember how to move in 3 dimensions if all he's doing is this academic little piece. He needs to get up, walk around a parking lot, or get on a bike and ride his bike around the parking lot with another person, or even just, imagine that there's another person there. And that is going to ingrain that mental and emotional state that is needed for formation flying into his body. So his focus is obviously going to be on the flying, but he's got to put the physicality behind it. And that is the same thing that is for every other person on the planet when it comes to emotion. So by changing the motion of your body, you can change the emotion. Okay? So motion is emotion. Okay? So just remember that. Motion is emotion. So dancers know this. Gymnasts know this. Motion is emotion. How you stand with your back straight or your arms up, that affects how you feel. That affects the message that you're communicating to the audience. And the message you're communicating to the audience is also the same message you're communicating to yourself. So whether you're a professional dancer, an actor, or just a person trying to stay positive during a very, very difficult period of time in your life, and the lives of all of us, really, motion is emotion. Motion creates emotion, okay? And that gives us the ability to focus even more on what we want and allows us to ask better questions. So we already talked about the questions, right? There's a great book which I continually recommend over and over and over again. I'm going to recommend it again here on the side here. And that is A More Beautiful Question. And forgive me, I don't know the author's name, but it's a great book. It's one of those creative nonfiction books that takes you on a story to entertain your mind, but also to educate you on the power of questions. Questions are what then focuses our mind. So if I ask you, why are you so successful? And I needed you to answer that question. Why are you so successful? I didn't ask you whether you are successful. I didn't ask you whether you want to be successful. I didn't ask you to tell me how successful you are. I asked you a very specific question. Why are you so successful? This is a great question. And here's why. This question presupposes that you are already successful, right? Whether or not you have self-doubt, whether or not you have, your neighbor is more successful by some, random standard is irrelevant. This question presupposes that you are already successful, that you have something to do with it, right? And that you're not just successful, but you're so successful. So that you're basically above average in the success department. So this question is going to put your mind on track to come up with reasons and answers to explain why you are so successful. And what that does is, let me erase these little airplanes flying around here. Okay. All right, so what this does these questions is that it begins to help you find references for why you are so successful. All those reasons that you're telling me about why you're so successful are reinforcing the presupposition that you are successful. And you can think of these references like legs on a table. So if you can imagine, and I'm not the best drawer, but I'm sort of decent. If you think of a table and these legs here hold up the table. Each of these legs is a reference, or you could call it a reason, right? For this belief, which is what a presupposition is here, this belief that you are successful, right? However, if you ask the opposite question, or a question, ask it this way: why am I so unlucky? Whew, so it's presupposing that you're unlucky. It's presupposing that you have something to do with it. And you're not just unlucky, you're so unlucky. So you're more unlucky than the average bear, right? Like, this totally makes me unhappy. Not just that, but you're probably not unlucky 100% of the time. You know, maybe you're unlucky like 20% of the time. But in your mind, you're making it seem, by asking this question, that you're unlucky more often than not, which may be a completely false statement. And the reason that this is the case is because of what you're focused on. So, you know, back up here to our little diagram. Questions or words influence our focus, but focus also influences our questions. Physiology affects our ability to ask good questions, but physiology also affects our ability to focus on, you know, the glass being half full. So all of these elements affect each other in a cycle that, if we don't take control of this cycle, we are going to be doomed to feeling depressed. We are going to be doomed to feeling, oops, sorry, a little bit too big there. That's what I was looking for. Okay. We're going to be doomed to feeling depressed. We're going to be doomed to feeling anxious. We're going to be doomed to feeling anger, despair, hopelessness. Eventually, all this will turn into hate, rage, and, you know, other really bad things. So we have to nip this in the bud. We have to kill these as early as possible when the emotions are still manageable. And the way we do that is by taking control of this over here. Boom. And it's never someone else's responsibility. It's never someone else's job. There is, you know, never, ever, ever, ever going to be a perfect, oops, not prefect, perfect, never going to be a perfect time, never going to be a perfect day, never going to be the perfect, you know, busy level of busyness. We just have to do it. We just have to decide that we want to be people, be individuals, human beings who are in control of our emotions and not allow our emotions to get the better of us. Because here's what's true. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. A tree. Okay, so think of a tree. If you can think of a tree, you can imagine a tree. You can observe the tree. Because you can observe the tree, are you the tree? No, you're not the tree. So you can safely say, I am not the tree. Think of your clothes, right? The clothes that sit on your body. You can observe your clothes, you can touch your clothes, you can see your clothes, you can smell your clothes. So you can safely say that I am not my clothes. But someone looking at you might say that, you are your clothes in the sense that they're kind of a part of you. They represent your style. They're part of what makes you unique. But from your perspective, you're not your clothes because you know that you take them on and off and they're not you. You have a certain attachment to them, but you're not. This is not something that anyone would argue. But look at your hand now. Look at your hand, or just look at any part of your body. Are you your hand? I mean, you can observe your hand. You can see your hand. You can smell your hand. You can touch your hand. Your hand is observable. And if you can observe something, then you are not that thing. If you can observe something, you are not that thing. The observer cannot be the observed, right? Observer cannot be the observed. Now, some of you who are more analytical would be able to kind of dissect this a little bit deeper, and I would have to kind of argue my point a little bit more. But for a moment, just kind of let's say that on a semi-macro level, this is a true statement. This is a fact. So if you look at your hand, yes, it's part of your body. Yes, your body is a very familiar thing. You've lived in it all of your life. You've lived in it since you were born. So you're very familiar with it. It feels like it is you. But let's be honest, it's observable by you. So you are not your body. I am not my body. All right. Let's take it one step further. Observe your emotions, right? Anger, sadness, hopelessness, happiness too, joy. So, you can't, put your finger on an emotion. You can't put your coffee down on it, but you can say that it's a thing that you can observe. So again, if you can observe your emotions, are you your emotions? Are you really? And the answer is no. I mean, if you can observe a tree and you know that you're not the tree, if you can observe your clothes and you're not your clothes, even if you can observe your hand or your body, and as familiar as you are with your hand or your body, you can say that it's not you, like you're not it, right? Like if your hand was cut off, God forbid, knock on wood, you would still remain, even if it was like sitting on it's just your hand. You own it. You feel like you own it, just like you feel like you own your favorite pair of shoes. So back to emotions. You can also safely say, I am not my emotions. Not my emotions. And let's take it one step further. Thoughts, right? Thoughts and emotions are intimately linked. Thoughts produce emotions. Thoughts of thoughts of or words of I'm not good enough. Questions like, why does this happen to me? Again, you can observe these phrases, you can observe these words, you can observe this passage of, neurons firing together. And again, if you can observe something, then you are not that thing. So again, even though we're very intimately familiar with our thoughts and we're very intimately familiar with our emotions because we live with them more than we live with anything else in our life, same with our body. At the same time, you can say that I am not my thoughts. Sorry. I am not my thoughts, right? Because you can observe them. So if you're not your body and you're not your emotions and you're not your thoughts, then who are you really? Who am I? Who is this person here? Who is I? Who is I? I is not physical. I is not intellectual. I is not emotional. I is human spirit, soul, consciousness. I've gotten into this discussion a few times with doctors and PhD research scientists on airplanes. I don't know how this happens, but I keep sitting next to them. I keep sitting next to physicists. I keep sitting next to all kinds of extremely intellectual people by accident. And we have this discussion. And, you know, they boil it down to a matter of, you know, electrical signals firing through specific pathways between different neurons in the brain, and that's all consciousness is. And once those neurons stop firing, there's nothing left and the body dies. And, you know, I take that on board, but at the same time, I always ask, you know, why does that happen? Why do we even have these electrical signals going through our body, through our nervous system? And there are electrical signals going through the nervous system of lots of other entities, lots of other, you know, animals, and there's electromagnetic fields around every single living thing. So yet no other entity has consciousness where it is aware of itself. And so, you know, they have done studies, and it seems that some animals do become aware of themselves eventually, but not on the level that we are. So what is that? What is I? The reason I'm going through all this is because so often we feel like, you know, we're at the mercy of our emotions. We're at the mercy of the news. We're at the mercy of others' expectations, demands. I know a lot of people now are living in very close quarters with people that they haven't lived with in a long time. And inevitably, expectations are going to start bubbling up. For many people, 2 weeks is the end of the honeymoon period of living with someone else. And so we're you know, marching on this path to longer and longer number of days in isolation or, you know, semi-isolation with our family members. And eventually it's going to get really old, and we're going to get irritated, and we're going to get very aggravated, and we're going to want to leave the room or leave the space, but maybe we can't. So I go through all this about the emotions and the thoughts, and I'm not my thoughts and I'm not my emotions, to bring home the point that this triangle, where you've got words, physiology, and focus, is the formula for emotional mastery. And if you can master your emotions, then you can think, so to speak, think positively because you know what levers to pull. So, something to think of the quality control triangle for those of you that are in business, right? I can't remember exactly, and I might get it a little bit wrong, but there's money, there's time, and there's quality. Usually, one of these three things needs to be sacrificed or needs to be suboptimal if the other two are going to be optimized. Or if one is going to be optimized, then the other two need to be suboptimal. In the sense that these are levers that a business person can pull to bring a product to market on time, on budget, and up to a specific level of quality. And you can think of this is you. This is your emotional self. This is your mental self. And you've got these three levers: words, questions, right? How you use your body, physiology, and focus. And you can bring the you that you want to market, to bring it to bear, bring it into the moment by consciously, actively, and purposefully manipulating these three levers. And it is you. It's not someone else. Because someone can say something like the news could be really terrible, the news could be really frightening. But if you take control of your mental state, you get up, you go for a walk, you ask yourself the question, what good can come out of this? You focus on someone you love, something you love. You focus on a different image, a different scene. Maybe you watch a movie, I don't know, or you watch a video. Maybe you meditate. You can feel completely different than whatever the news wanted you to feel. You can feel completely different from what your neighbor feels, who doesn't know or doesn't realize that he or she has these levers that they can pull to bring a product to market, to bring themselves to market in the best possible way. So I find that when I present this quality control triangle here, and I mention levers, everyone goes, yes, right? Time, money, and quality. Those are the trade-offs when it comes to a product. You also, I wouldn't call these trade-offs, I would actually call them reinforcing functions, because this reinforces that, and that reinforces this, and this reinforces that, and vice versa, back and forth and back. But there's still levers that you can pull to bring positivity into your everyday. When I work with clients and I do what we call hypnosis, I'm guiding this process. I'm actually guiding this process for you. I'm using my words to shift your focus. And by shifting your focus, I'm changing your physiology. Because if any of you have worked with me for any extended period of time, you may have been pushed into an emotional state where you were not happy. I guided you to a place where you felt that unhappiness in your body. You felt a tightness in your chest. You felt a heaviness in the pit of your stomach. You felt light in your heart. You felt lightheaded, perhaps even. And that's just because of the words that I was using and the way those words was shifting your focus. And then the emphasis of my words and the emphasis of the speed of, the speed or the tempo that I was speaking, that was shifting the feelings inside your body. Now, you were probably laying down on a recliner or on a table, so you weren't physically moving, but the endocrine and the neurological response was still the same as it would have been if you had been moving your body, based on what I was saying. So you're already familiar with this. You're already more familiar with it than you realize, but we often feel, again, like we're not in control. And I want to tell you that taking back control is much, much, much easier than you think it is, because it's right here, right? So I suspect that we're not going to be out of the woods with this virus for a while. I have my own gut, and some input from educated people around me, but 30 days may just be the beginning. Um, and so I'm the kind of person that likes to plan for the long term. So before we part ways, I want to ask you a few questions. Whoop, there we go. Questions. What are you doing currently every day to put yourself in a positive, healthy mental state? Okay. Are you getting outside? Are you getting fresh air? Are you meditating? Are you reading content that is inspiring, that is infusing you with hope, that is infusing you with optimism, with creativity? Or are you just reading the news, which is bringing you down? And just like they say, in terms of like a person's reputation, that it takes a lifetime to build a good reputation, but it only takes one bad review or one bad, rumor or something like that to bring it down. The same goes for your mood. So it can take like days and days and days and days of positive news, right? Like to bring you up, to give you hope, to make you feel positive or hopeful or whatever. And it can just take one crappy um, news report or situation in your family or your household to knock it all down. So you, me, everybody, we need to constantly be standing guard, so to speak, standing guard at the entrance of our mind and putting into our brain content that brings us things that are good, things that are put us in a healthy mental and emotional state. So that's question number one. What are you doing currently every day to put yourself in a positive, healthy, mental, and, emotional? They're on many levels the same thing. Mental and emotional state. And come up with a list of, like think of it like a purse, like you've got a little drawstring bag here. And inside of this drawstring bag, you've got different things that you can do. Because I know some people, they like to have a very specific routine, do the exact same thing every day. They take great comfort in having the same thing to look forward to every day. Other people like myself, I honestly can't do the same thing 2 days in a row or I'll get irritated. So I use this metaphor. For me, it's like I have a drawstring bag with a bunch of marbles. Each marble is a different technique, a different option, a different, activity for me to do to put myself in a positive, healthy, mental, and emotional state. And every day I draw from the bag. What I do is I block out my time. So I've got the whole day and I block out my time usually into thirds or quarters. And I do one thing in each of these periods from this bag. Boom, 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 boom. So my outcome on any given day is to be healthy, to feel healthy, happy, and secure, and, loved. So I choose from this bag, uh, from this selection, and I input those into my day every single day. That's the way I do it because I can't stand to do the same thing multiple days in a row. But you're welcome to establish a schedule that is more specific if it suits you in any way. But I do always apply this triangle here, right? So I'm always, what am I reading? What am I watching? Right? And how am I moving? So my choices from the bag address these three things. I always go outside every day. Where I go depends, and what I do depends, but I always go outside every day. I always do some kind of physiological, maybe it might be meditation. It might just be meditation, but I still do something with my physiology. My focus, where is my attention being focused? And so it might be a certain book I'm reading, or a movie, documentary, talking to someone. I'm always, though, focused on my outcome. So I suspect that a lot of people don't have an outcome. And that's the next question here. Number 2, what is your outcome for the next 60 days? Right? Because this is not going to be resolved overnight. Even if we do all go back to work, if we go back to work right away, there's going to be another outbreak and people are going to then hunker down once more. If we go back to work in waves, we're still not really fully back to a full functioning economy. So again, you're just extending and prolonging the situation. So give yourself 60-day chunks. What is your outcome for the next 60 days? And identify a physical outcome, identify a mental outcome, identify an emotional outcome. You can do it that way. Those of you that have worked with me know about the good old wheel of life, right? With its 8 things here. 1 is physical, 1 is your intimate relationship, 1 is going to be family, 1 is going to be spiritual, 1 is going to be community, 1 is going to be financial, 1 is going to be career, although that's upside down, sorry about that. And then 1 is going to be mental, emotional, right? So here on the perimeter is like a 10 out of 10. So if your blueprint for intimate relationship is, XYZ, and your life actually has in it an intimate partner with whom the relationship actually meets the criteria for perfection, so to speak, for the 10 out of 10, then your intimate relationship would be up here like this. It would just, the whole thing would be colored like that, right? 10 out of 10. Your love life, your relationship with your romantic partner is just exactly what you've always wanted it to be. It totally meets your blueprint. Your blueprint for love and intimacy is being met. You are just happy as a pig, and you know what? And you're super thrilled. However, let's just say physically, your physical body is a 5 out of 10. It's a 5 out of 10. You weigh more than you want to be weighing. You're not eating clean. Your energy is lower than you think it should be. So your physical health is not matching your blueprint not my blueprint, not your neighbor's blueprint, but your blueprint for physical health, then you would mark it here at the halfway point. Let's say that financially, as a result of this situation with the stock market, you know, your financial situation has really taken a hit. So you're like a 1 or a 2 on the financial on your financial blueprint. So this is 10 out of 10. Obviously, this is 0, just in case that wasn't obvious and abundantly obvious. That's 0 here in the center. But here you are, 2 out of 2, and so on and so forth. And you can identify what is your outcome for 1, 2, or 3 of these wedges over the next 60 days. Some of these you can address even better now that you're sequestered at home, and you can improve your relationship with your significant other. You can get healthy and, hey, eat less. You won't have to go to the supermarket as much. Exercise at home. You don't have as many obligations to keep you away. You know, family, clearly you can spend more time with family, or strengthen and deepen those bonds, so on and so forth. Probably 8 is too much, but you can at least address 1 or 2 as your outcome. So 2 different ways you can do this. You can focus on physical, mental, and emotional outcomes, or you can select some outcomes here from this wheel of life. Once you've done your evaluation, self-evaluation of where you think you are in terms of proximity to your blueprint for that category of your life. Okay, so to summarize, since I have like 1 minute left before our time is up, 2 questions that you're going to take away. What are you currently doing every day to put yourself in a positive, healthy mental and emotional state? You can either set up a very specific schedule, or you can pick and choose from a selection of options, and make sure you do at least one of them in the morning, one in the afternoon, one in the evening, something like that. Always know what your outcome is. So the second question is, what is your outcome for the next 60 days? 2 ways you can do that. Identify 1 or more outcomes based on physical, mental, and emotional states of being, or identify 1, 2, or 3 outcomes based on where you are on the wheel of life. You can draw this wheel of life yourself if you haven't already. And then, of course, I'm going to send this video to you guys here in a moment. And back here, of course, to this triad here. You are not at the mercy of your emotions. You are not at the mercy of the news. You are not at the mercy of others' expectations. And we all need to really look at this situation we're in as a long road. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint. So you have these levers to pull, to create, to bring to bear the best possible you. Those 3 levers are physiology, how you use your body, your focus, what you see, hear, and experience in your mind, and the words, the questions that you ask yourself on a daily basis. And these 3 things constantly reinforce each other. This is how you take control of your mind so that you can think positively, even right now when it seems like the news and, you know, the government and everybody is working against you. So with that, thank you so much for participating with me, for being on this call. And I really hope that you'll join me again next time. And I hope that you invite other people to join you so that we can have the more the merrier type of experience. Because if you can do this and help ask your friends and your family to keep you accountable, and you guys maybe print this out and put it on your refrigerator, right? This little triangle. Maybe you put your wheel of life on your refrigerator so that you see it on a daily basis, and you're like, man, maybe I shouldn't eat that ice cream. My physiology is only a 5 out of 10. You might just choose not to have that bowl of ice cream, right? I put things on my walls all the time. I put things on my refrigerator all the time. So that's all I have for today, or that's all I, can really cover for today. I hope you guys have a beautiful weekend. Stand by for the recording and join me next time with a friend or a family member. Okay, take care, and I don't know, be safe, be healthy, stay positive, and I'll see you soon. I'll talk to you later. Bye.